Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Today, our special guest is all the way from Denmark, and his name is Søren Mogensen. And Søren is the CEO of Titan. And just another thing, too, is when Søren was living in London, he went by the name Sean because it was easier for people to remember, I guess. So you can call him Sean too if you want. Hey, what's up, Sean Søren Mogensen? How you doing today?
Hey, Sean. Hey, how's it going? You're okay?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. And so you are a CEO of a container company, and I think containers are pretty cool. In fact, I've bought a few containers recently. I bought 3 of them in the last year, actually. So I'm pro container. But one thing about my containers, though, is they don't have any solar on them. How can you help me?
Well, that's a good question. And we can help you. We've just delivered what we believe is the world's most environmentally friendly cold room. This has solar panels on the roof of the container. We've reduced the ceiling 10 centimeters, and we've put solar panels on top to reduce energy consumption of the refrigerated container. Moreover, we've added insulation in the walls, vacuum insulation, so that we are able to reduce overall power consumption by more than 50% on average.
So tell me again, you said you reduced the ceiling. What was that again?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. It's a specially designed model.
And so, like, I know what is a regular container is 8 feet wide, 8.5 feet tall. Is that right? You might have it in centimeters, something. But, and so I think so like a regular container dimension is 8 feet wide, so it fits on the road, 8.5 feet tall, 20 or 40 feet long. But they have super sized containers, and I think, 53 feet for the oversized ones? And that happens to be for an energy storage system. They have certain sizes of energy storage systems like that you set on the ground that are adopted from the container guidelines. And so they let you use those same dimensions for the maximum size of an energy storage system.
Yeah, we've seen containers in all sorts of sizes. However, we operate with the standard measures. We operate with 20 foot and 40 foot. Mm-hmm. But as we developed the new Arctic Store Horizon, which, as mentioned, we believe is the world's most environmentally friendly version, we realized that in order for us to add solar panels on top and for it to still be able to transport and stack on top of each other, we reduced the ceiling 10 centimeters together with our engineers. And that's one of the changes we had to make as we wanted to change how a refrigerated container consumes energy. We wanted to reduce it by more than 50%. Oh, wow. This was one of the changes we had to make in that process.
So that's really interesting. So that you can fit the solar on there, you have to reduce the height. And I imagine that's probably not too easy to do. I mean, it might cost more than the container costs to lower that ceiling by, 10 centimeters?
Well, we produce a container in China. Mm-hmm. So with our partners, we designed the dimensions from the outset. And this was one of the changes we made.
Oh, okay. Because most containers that I'm familiar with, like the ones that I bought, are ones that are already used for shipping. So I'm over here in the U.S. They come from China. They make them in China. And if you want to get a nice container, you get one that only took one trip. And so that's what I recently bought. I bought some containers that only had one trip from China over this way. And it's surprising that, for something like that, it could be like $2,000 even. I always thought it would be more, but it's just be more expensive to ship it back empty. And so I guess that's how they figured that out. But that's interesting. So the container factory where they're making containers, you just have them put a little bit less steel in there and make it a little bit shorter.
Well, at least we're reducing the ceiling. That's what we're doing. And that's a part of the design. So as they produce the container in China, they make sure to fit it to the dimensions that we require.
Okay. And then when you're putting the solar on top of this energy efficient freezer, refrigerator, this cooling container, super cool, how do you put everything else in there? So you're going to have batteries, I would think. You're going to have, do you have inverters, or is it DC direct to turn over the compressors to cool things off, make condensation?
It's a good point. And the short version is, as a starting point, we don't typically offer it with batteries. It'll do just fine without batteries. We do have an inverter, though, that is fitted to the local market.
Okay, because I guess if you have something that's insulated good enough, you get it cold and then it stays cold for, all night long. And at nighttime it's cooler anyway.
It will typically require a certain effort from the cooling machine, regardless of, no matter how good we make the insulation, there will be a need for some degree of cooling from the machine. This is because our customers are typically food and pharma customers. It's also technology companies who are keen to test components in temperature regulated environments. And whether it's food, pharma, tech, or something else, logistics as well, they're all very consumed that the temperature is stable and constant throughout the day, throughout the week. And in that sense, the machine will be running, it will be active, and will be constantly improving and managing temperature. So it's not like it goes without the machine. The machine will be active. So what it does is it reduces the need, and that's how we can reduce energy consumption. It is through better insulation, has to reduce need. But it's also, of course, the solar panels that then deliver some of the power for the machine.
Okay, very interesting. And, it is a cold time of the year, I think, where you are and where a lot of people are while we're recording this here in January. And I've always wondered about refrigeration. What happens, like where you are, it's below 0 Celsius, so it's freezing where you are. And if you were having vegetables in a container that has refrigeration, are you able to turn that around and make it a heat pump so you could keep it above freezing?
100%.
So you can do that?
100%. We are absolutely able to offer both cold storage and hot storage. And it's a very wide temperature interval that we offer. And customers do ask for it. We have plenty of customers who want to keep it constant at 5 degrees or 10 degrees. And obviously, we have food customers who want to keep it far above that as well. So I think the common denominator is that customers are looking to have a 100% temperature controlled environment with the best possible insulation, best possible energy consumption. And that's exactly what we can offer.
Have you ever thought about using your solar container technology for battery energy storage systems? So you have like a big battery energy storage system that no way, like just that much solar that fits on top of a container is going to fully charge those things in any kind of time that would be feasible, but it's a little bit extra. I don't know. It might just come in handy. It might just be, kind of neat to have some company offer that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We've actually thought a lot about it because it's effectively what you see out there already. So what you see are big solar panel farms, and then many add battery container storage next to the farms to ease out fluctuations and to create a buffer, which I think is very intelligent, very, very smart move. And we see it more and more.
I was thinking of a neat application for that. Like, let's say that you had containers that were 10 centimeters shorter so they could fit some solar on top. And how much solar do you fit on top of a container too? So like if you had a 40-foot container, a few kilowatts or something like that?
I got it here.
Okay.
With the Horizon containers, we've got 9 solar panels installed. Each panel provides 595 watt. So a total of 5,355 watt. So 5 kilowatt.
So it's about 5 kilowatts. Okay. So you put about 5 kilowatts up there. And of course, when you're putting like megawatt hours of batteries in a container, maybe a 40-foot container, something like that, you're not going to be able to charge that thing with 5 kilowatts unless you had it sitting there all year. It would just take a real long time. It's the same argument of why you don't put solar on your car to charge the battery, because you would have to park it for months just to charge that battery because it takes more solar. But one of the things that they do with the cars sometimes is they just operate the fan or a cooling system just so the car doesn't get overheated. And so maybe it could be some kind of protective mechanism. So let's say that the solar farm goes down or the grid goes down and it doesn't have a connection to the grid, that it still has enough to keep the cooling system going so you don't overheat the batteries when they're sitting there in a desert. Keep them at the right temperature.
There's no doubt. There's many applications of this, and we have thought about it a lot. The Titan containers, essentially what we do is we allow anyone to store anything anywhere, and we offer storage for businesses and consumers. And that includes, for example, festivals who need storage of food and drinks. in temperature controlled environments.
Okay.
And we've thought about actually delivering a battery container to festivals where the energy is green energy, and then the festival will be able to provide fully or partly their energy through green energy. It is something we are debating. It is something we're thinking about. Battery containers are still relatively expensive, so the rent is a relatively high rent for it to make sense. And that's one of the barriers still. A container full of lithium batteries would be an expensive thing to rent. And
Yeah, sure.
that will, we're thinking through who will be compelled by that and to what extent the market demand would justify it.
Well, perhaps say there's the Burning Man festival and there's no grid connection out there. And then there's Fusion Festival. Have you heard of that one? I went to that one over in
I've heard more about
Germany.
Burning Man Fusion.
Yeah. And so they don't have a lot of grid infrastructure, if any, at some of these festivals. But maybe you could have that container with batteries in it when there's no festival, which is 99% of the time. You have it just sitting there where connected to the grid like any other battery energy storage system. And then you only pull it away every once in a while where you need it, or maybe there's an emergency and you bring it to wherever there's a hurricane or, something like that. In fact, people could bring it to different places, even seasonally. It's you got a truck, you're oh, it's winter time and maybe Texas needs it because their grid had some trouble in the winter. Oh, it's hurricane season. Let's bring it on over to Louisiana. And they can move the storage around on the grid to where they need it seasonally. Or more important than the grid is the festivals, Burning Man and Fusion Festival. So
I love the idea. Effectively, it's just a very big power bank, isn't it? We tend to use that all the time, all of us, right? And all of us really like the idea of having extra power in the back of our pockets or in our bags. And effectively, this will be the same thing. If there's a power outage during the most important event or concert, how nice would it be to have backup solutions like that? We would love to provide that. We would love to be the ones to make the payment and to keep that on our balance sheet and then rent it out to those who would need it. We just got to make sure the market is big enough. And that's what we're looking into, what we're trying to understand. But Søren, if any of your podcast listeners would have interest in this, we'd love to hear from them.
Yeah, I just thought of another weird application. Let's say that you're on the border of California and Nevada, and the electricity prices are way different. You go and charge it up in Nevada, and then you drive across the line, and then you discharge it in California. That would be kind of a strange application. Or you're just moving it around. There's different ways of moving electrons. Of course, we know wires, but then there is hydrogen. Hydrogen pipelines don't have voltage drop. But then there's also just hauling batteries around, So
and everything's conceivable. I mean, if the fluctuations, the variance is big enough, this kind of opportunity would certainly make sense, right? So, and of course, that's conceivable.
Yeah. Yeah, because there could be just different places where the electricity costs twice as much that are close to each other. And so you just bring it back and forth. In fact, if there's a different rate for commercial rates are less than residential. So I take it to a commercial company that just all they do is charge batteries so you could take it home. And it's you're going from 12 cents to 50 cents kilowatt hour or something like that sometimes. And so you could bring the energy storage from commercial to residential. So essentially you're sneaking away to get commercial rates for a residential customer. That'd be kind of...
Yeah, and some people will think something like that is hard to imagine, but we don't have to go further back than to 2022 where we saw energy prices explode, definitely here in Europe. And I think people would be willing to be very creative to manage their electricity bills because this was an inflation driver and it would impact the production of goods, it would impact people's consumption, it would impact the whole society and the economies of very big societies across the world. And if there would be opportunities to make an advantage from energy price differences across geographies, I think people would be open to looking into it.
Yeah. We got to do everything we can do to get those electrons to where they're needed and from where they are inexpensive to where they are expensive. And then that will that's sort of like capitalism. And it's getting rid of the monopoly control, which is there's a natural monopoly with utilities. It's not like they're bad for doing that. It's the only way that it really works. It's not like you're going to have two sets of power lines going to your house, but you can haul around batteries,
Yeah, that's right.
And it might not be that expensive if you're not going that far. So that's kind of neat.
It's certainly an option, but until that point, what we are consumed with right now is the electricity bill of keeping things cold or warm. And we can see that very often the electricity bill of renting an Arctic store from us is a meaningful amount of it, is a meaningful cost for many businesses. And with this new product we've been able to provide, we can reduce that energy consumption bill by, and on average, 55%. And that is real. That is something we have, and it's right here. Of course, the savings differ depending on where in the world we are and how much sun there is. I'm in Denmark right now. The sun is basically not on the sky. It's not there much. There is still a strong advantage. In Denmark, there is still, on average, a 17% energy reduction from solar panels like the ones we have. But in LA, it's 33%. So in California, where you are, the advantage of such an Arctic store horizon would be massive, and it would have a big impact on energy consumption for a business or for an individual looking to keep any kind of product on a constant temperature.
We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Sean White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSEAN, that's solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. So usually when somebody's doing cold storage, or like, is it usually like a container on a truck? Is that where you need to cool it off, or where is the container just in general? Like not even.
Yeah, good question. It's a great question. What people do is they have it next to their facilities. So it will arrive on a truck, and then it will be taken and positioned wherever the customer needs it.
Like for how long does the customer leave it there? Are we talking like a week, a month, a year, or all different?
Sometimes a week, sometimes a weekend, sometimes for 5 years.
Okay.
We're a rental business, and everything is possible. So if it's an event, it can be a week. That happens.
So you're not looking at keeping it cool while it's on the road. You're looking at keeping it cool while it's sitting on the ground somewhere.
Exactly, spot on. And it's a typical question we get. People hear containers and they think of us as a transport or logistics business.
Because that's where people mostly see containers on the road. Yeah.
I get it. I 100% get it. But actually what we provide is a storage service. And the container just happens to be what we use for that. It's like, Lego, they use plastic bricks. But really what they provide, in my perception, is an opportunity for grown-ups and for kids to play. And that's the same logic. We really just provide the box as a way to deliver the real service, the real customer outcome, which is a storage facility, sometimes temperature-controlled storage facility. And it will typically be standing permanently on a company or in private individual's property.
Okay. So when they do something like this, you're also plugging it in, I'm sure, right? And then the solar is to assist with it. Is the solar enough to keep it cold ever, or do you always need a little bit extra?
You need a little bit of extra. We can't, at this stage, take it off the grid and just let it go. But we would love to develop that in the future. We're doing a project in Ghana at the moment, in Africa, where the challenge is that they're losing 50% of their crops. 50% of their crops are lost due to weather conditions. And they would love to store their crops in such facilities as the ones we have. But they don't have, it can't be on the grid. There's not a grid to connect to. So one of the aspirations, one of the things we'd love to provide in the future is this opportunity to actually keep it off the grid. But right now, that's an ambition. It's not something we are offering today. Today, it does need to plug into the grid, and then it can reduce energy consumption, as mentioned, by more than half.
Okay, yeah, and I remember I'm on this award jury for the Smarter E, that's Intersolar, also known as Intersolar in Munich. And there was some people that were trying to tackle that problem in Africa where the food was spoiling. Yeah.
No, there's a lot of work going into it. And how cool would it be if we could help farmers in Ghana mitigate this challenge of losing half the crops?
Yeah. Well, you should try to get one of those awards. You can apply.
Yeah. No, we should. We'll try to deliver first, and then we'll seek awards later on. But I was going to say the Arctic Store Horizon doesn't end with that. One thing is we can reduce energy consumption. I should remember to mention also that we seek to use a machine that's allowing for environmentally friendly circumstances as well. The machine that actually does the cooling is normally a machine that would have a global warming potential of more than 2,000 units. So global warming potential is the scenario where the refrigerant actually leaks from the machine. That sometimes does happen.
Sure, yeah.
And when there is a leakage,
Freon is famous for that.
exactly. Yeah. And when there is a leakage, there is a CO2 impact from that. So it's measured in global warming potential. And the global warming potential of a typical refrigerated container is more than 2,000. We've now been able to identify and use a machine that has another refrigerant, a refrigerant called 1234YF. And that refrigerant has a global warming potential below 1. Below one. So we take the global warming potential from more than 2,000 to below 1. That's not a change.
That sounds like global cooling. You got some global cooling there. Yeah.
Yeah. That at least is a significant change to that aspect as well. So we're very proud that we're on the one hand reducing energy consumption, but with the other as well, we're actually reducing global warming potential as well.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, one thing that I'm just wondering, like technically speaking, is you're taking something that has a solar inverter without batteries and you are plugging it in to the grid. Is there any chance that it could feed the grid? Like, let's say that your refrigerator didn't need it. It was just like very cold, bright day and you didn't really need the 5 kilowatts of PV up there. And so would it backfeed the grid?
At this stage, we've looked into it and we've discussed it. At this stage, the short answer is no. At this stage, that's not something that would or could happen.
It would probably open up a can of worms because then you'd need interconnection permits and all that kind of stuff. It kind of reminds me of, I have a mini split, which is pretty much the same technology, mini split, heat pump, air conditioners. And this particular mini split I got from EG4, and they make one that you can plug a string of solar into it. And so one of the things that these, air conditioners, heat pumps and things have these days is an inverter built into them. So there's a DC bus. So even though you have 50 hertz in Europe, 60 hertz in the United States, that's not perfect. So what they do is they convert it to DC and then back to AC at the perfect frequency. And they can change that frequency. And like they call it a variable frequency drive. And one of the things that they can do with that is make it so it's perfectly efficient, but you're converting to DC. So probably what's happening there is your PV is already DC, and it might be at a different DC. So they'll have a DC to DC converter. And then when it's plugged into the grid, they have an AC to DC converter. And that way it's impossible for you to backfeed the grid, because that one thing that's the AC to DC converter that's going from the grid can't go backwards. It's not designed to be able to do that. That's probably what's going on.
Yeah, we're very keen. So we have inverters, and we're very keen to make sure things work, and they do. And we have inverters that work for the different reasons where we supply this. But yes, we've made sure that there is not a can of worms coming from the potential aspect of power actually going back into the grid. That's not the idea here.
Which I think wouldn't be a problem when you only have like 5 kilowatts and you're plugging in something that probably could, like, do you know, like just when you plug in, how many kilowatts is that you could take from the grid?
No, I'm not sure.
It's probably more than 5 kilowatts maybe, or maybe it's 5 kilowatts, something like that. Yeah. But so it would be like, usually over there in Europe, it's 230 volts. And when you're over here, maybe it would be 240 when you're plugging in, or 208, because that's more commercial. And so that's probably how you're powering that from the grid side. But that's pretty neat what you're doing there.
Yeah, I mean, we're proud of it. And it's been taking us more than 2 years to develop this. So it's a big moment for us. Titan Containers has been known for innovation in the 4 decades that we've existed, because at the end of the day, the products we produce, they can and they have been replicated. So for us, it is about keep innovating, keep thinking about what is it that our customers demand and how can we accommodate that in the best possible way. And more customers come to us and talk about electricity consumption, and they talk about sustainability. They have sustainability reports, and they have responsibilities, and they've been asking us questions about this agenda. And as a result of that, this is the product we've come with. We're very proud of it. And there's a lot of demand. For many food and pharma businesses, this is almost like a no-brainer. They're able to reduce their global warming potential. They're able to reduce their energy bill and they're able to deliver a very strong sustainability report with this as an enabler. So for many, this has attracted attention, and we're very proud to now actually have these Arctic Storage Horizons in the market.
So where can people get them? What are your main markets?
It is the US, it is Europe, it is Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, China. So Titan is a global business. We have solutions in more than 90 countries, and we have representation in 30 countries, most certainly in the US as well.
Okay.
So we're based in California. Well, we have people on the ground in California, and all that people have to do is to go on titancontainers.com, and they'll be directed right to them.
Great. Well, if you want to bring one out here where I am and test it, I have a solar training center that I'm busy building. You might even heard some noises in the background, some saws.
Yeah,
I
heard a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you wanted to bring it out here and test it out in the California sun and, take a lot of pictures, it's beautiful. It's in the redwoods. And,
We would love that. We would love that. And we've got units not far, so we would absolutely love that.
Great. Okay. Well, sounds really good. And so where can people find you?
Online. If people go online, they will find Titan Containers, and they will see we have representatives all over the US. We have our main office in Portland, Oregon, but we got people everywhere. Well, not everywhere. We got people, I think our team is 10 or 15 people in the US sitting across several states. And we can be found in most states. We're on the East Coast, we're on the West Coast, and we'll make the travel to wherever the customer is as well.
Great. So what is your website?
titancontainers.com.
Okay. And Titans, let's see, there's a movie called Clash of the Titans. I think that's some real tough Greek guys. Is that right?
Yeah. But it's true. It was originally 40 years ago. It was founded in 1984, and it was founded by an English man called Leland Barker. And the name came from his wife's horse. His wife had a horse called Titan, and that was the inspiration.
So you're not related to Odysseus or any of these people?
Well, we call each other Titans, the colleagues around, so I guess maybe.
All right, good. Yeah, you go back so many generations, we're all related, People would be surprised.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. All right, cousin. Well, if you make it over this way, come and say hi. We've got a lot of solar conferences all over the world, and I go to a lot of them. And so I'll see you at one of these, and keep in touch. Let me know how things are going. And everybody go check out Titan Containers. We'll have the website. We'll have your LinkedIn in the show notes. And so once again, that was Søren Mogensen of Titan Containers. And get your containers from him. I'm sure they're the best containers ever. They're brand new, not like my used containers. And thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast, where you can get yourself NABCEP certified and learn about solar and energy storage and grid interconnections. And you could even learn about how containers work, perhaps, when you think about all the electrical components and inverters and grid tied and AC to DC converters and DC to DC converters and all different DC to AC converters, which are also called inverters. We get into all that stuff, so check it out. Go to SolarSEAN.com and get yourself super, super smart and have a lot of fun doing it. Ow!